welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin if you're new here, and today's video is a bit of a tricky one. It's one that I was debating on if I should film for a little while now, and I decided that I will film it. Obviously, I'm currently filming this for two reasons. One, the biggest one, is that I have a lot of video ideas planned coming up, including like a weight loss journey that I've been on that I'm very close to the end of, and just other sort of life related videos that I realized, you know, this video that I'm filming right now is a very important part of that story, and so I just wanted to have this on my channel for my audience to refer back to if I ever reference this story and they're not like, what is she talking about? And the second reason is because honestly my husband and I are moving to California in 2 weeks at the time that I'm filming this, and I just didn't want to deal with filming a video that required a lot of moving parts, like an outfit video or a styling video or something. So as I drag this out, I'm sure you'll be able to tell from the title, but today's video is the story of all about how I tried to become an officer in the Marine Corps and was unable to do so. I hope you at least get some kind of entertainment from this. Maybe if you already know that this happened to me because you know me in my personal life, you might just be curious about it because I didn't talk that much about it. But anyway, I'll go ahead and get into it. So the reason why I first wanted to become an officer in the Marine Corps is actually a few reasons. So my family is very much a Marine Corps family. My dad is a retired officer in the Marine Corps. My brothers are both in the Marine Corps, and I'm a triplet, so I'm very, very close with my brothers. So they're both Marines, active duty Marines. And I was born and raised in Kailua, Hawaii, because my dad spent part of his active duty career stationed at the Marine Corps base nearby, and then he later became a reservist and finished out a very long Marine Corps career, which is so cool. He did a lot of really cool things in his Marine Corps career, but anyway, so I grew up like knowing that my dad is like a total badass, but I digress. And now my brothers are, and my husband is. And that's actually a quick caveat that I want to mention. This is also sort of the story of how I met my husband. So, Marine Corps family, what else? Oh, at the time that I decided to pursue this path, I was a sophomore in college. And I had just been asked to go to one of the West Point balls. I'm not exactly sure like what their different balls or events are called. It was, I was invited by a high school friend of mine, Jake, and he is currently an officer in the Army, obviously. And I was his date for this ball, and I just remember sitting there at this ball. And for context, I studied fashion merchandising in college, which, you know, it'll all tie in the end. But I'm sitting at this ball, you know, me in my little dress, and I'm surrounded by all of these people my age. I don't know if the correct term is cadet. Please don't shoot me if it's not. But I was surrounded by all of these, you know, West Point future officers in the Army that were both male and female, and they all looked so impressive in their uniforms. They're like dress uniforms, and I was just like, wow, like these people my age are actually like doing something with their lives. Like I'm just sitting here learning about textiles, and these people are going through rigorous training and they look so impressive, and I was really blown away by the whole experience. It was my first and only time on the West Point campus. Actually, maybe it wasn't the only time. Anyway, it was my first time on the West Point campus, and they have like this amazing dining hall, and I was just like totally blown away by the whole experience. So that's kind of like what got the gears turning in my mind initially. I was like, huh, like it looks like a really honorable and cool and interesting thing to be an officer in the military. But I also knew if I wanted to go down that path, because my family was such a deeply entrenched Marine Corps family, I didn't have, like in my mind, it was like Marine Corps or nothing. And I know that's the way that a lot of people that joined the Marine Corps, whether it's on the enlisted side or the officer side, I know that's how a lot of people think. So that kind of got the gears turning in my head, you know. I was like, that's an interesting path. And also, something about me that was going on at the time and that has been going on throughout my entire life is that I have always been an athlete. At that point in time, I was a coxswain on the women's rowing team at my college, which if you know anything about rowing, you're like, what? Coxswains don't do anything. I still was a very, very active coxswain. I was running all the time. I've been running since 6th grade in some way, shape, or form, be it cross country or track or whatever, and I'd always been very, very into lifting weights, and I really valued not just like working out for aesthetics, but up until college, I had always been either on I had been a full-time athlete, you know, every single season, you know, I had been either running or swimming or paddling, which is like the Hawaiian equivalent of rowing, and you know, I was into water sports. I was very active, hiking, the whole 9 yards. And I also was or still am, I guess, I just haven't been in a leadership position, but I was a very good leader. I had always been in a leadership position throughout multiple points in my life, and I thoroughly enjoy leadership. Like, I enjoy planning, I enjoy, you know, strategizing, for better or for worse, I enjoy like dictating out tasks in order to see a bigger picture sort of come through or come to light. And you know, all these things combined, and I were like swirling around in my head, and as I was doing more research about it, I was like, huh, maybe I should pursue becoming an officer in the Marine Corps. I'm already in college. I'm already continuing to refine my leadership capabilities as a member of this rowing team, and I'm still extremely active. And the biggest thing that convinced me to do it was that I was like, you know what, I don't want to wake up when I'm 40 years old and think, man, I should have tried to be an officer in the Marine Corps. And that's what did it for me. I was like, okay, like the worst thing that could happen is that it doesn't work out. And you know, I'm not gonna get too in depth with like the actual requirements of what it takes to be an officer in the Marine Corps. That's just not where my expertise lies. You know, I'm not an officer recruitment officer or anything. So if you are interested yourself in becoming an officer in the Marine Corps and going through OCS, do not use this video as that sort of resource as to like what you need to do in order to get there, because that's not going to be the focus of this video. It's going to be about my experience and why it didn't work out for me. But definitely do your research. There's a ton of resources out there that tell you exactly what you need to have, you know, physically, I want to say grades wise, I don't even remember, physically, grades wise, like what you can't have, like, you know, any sort of criminal record, stuff like that. So like find that information elsewhere. That's not what this video is for. But anyway, so I contacted an OSO, and if you're not familiar with the term, an OSO is an officer selection officer. Yes. And it's also an officer selection office. So the closest one to my school was like 2 hours away or something like that. And so I contacted them, I got into the pool, and there aren't that many, at the time, probably still to this day, but there aren't that many women who are interested in joining the Marine Corps as officers compared to men. It was like out of the 20, 30 poolees, I was one of like 2 or 3 women that were in the pool. And the officer that I was working with at the time, he no longer is in the Marine Corps, but anyway, he was very, very interested in me, and probably because on paper, physically, I was exactly the kind of candidate, that's what they're called, candidates, officer candidates. I was exactly the kind of female candidate that the Marine Corps was looking for. Like, without any training towards like a PFT, which is a Marine Corps physical fitness test, which involves running, pull-ups, and crunches, without any training for that whatsoever, I was still able to run like a pretty solid PFT. I remember the first one I ever ran with no pull-up skills, nothing. I think it was a 260 or higher. And again, that was no weightlifting, nothing. Academically, I was amazing. I'm gonna toot my own horn here. I had like a 3.8 GPA. I was a full-time student athlete. I had a lot of Marine Corps background and knowledge of like even just like basic technical terms about the Marine Corps. And I just remember when I had the meeting with the captain and the gunnery sergeant that he was working with, they were just like, I mean, obviously it's their job to be like, we want you, but like I could tell they were like, really, like, this is it. And so there's different ways you can go through officer candidate school. You can either do a 10-week course where you do a 10-week course before your senior year of college, and then you finish your senior year of college, and then you graduate. And then you graduate in commission. You can do a 10-week course after you have already graduated from college, and you don't even have to be a recent college graduate. There were people who were like, you know, 27 and whatnot that were going through officer candidate school with me both times that I went. Or you could do something that's called juniors and seniors, which is 2 6-week courses, and you do one before your junior year, one before your senior year. So in total it is longer, but some people prefer doing officer candidate school that way because, you know, if your body's getting beaten down over 10 weeks, it's a lot easier for you to say, like, to get through 6 weeks of your body being destroyed and then have like a full year of recovery and then go through the other 6 weeks than the 10 weeks straight. Anyway, so originally it would have been in my best interest to go through juniors and seniors. I could have theoretically made the cut because I talked to the OSO in March of my sophomore year, so I would have had from March until like June to prepare, which again, I was pretty physically fit, so I probably would have made it. And this is coming from someone who went through officer candidate school twice, so I probably would have made it if I had done juniors and seniors, but I couldn't because totally out of the blue, right before talking to the OSO, I had my wisdom teeth removed, and that procedure was botched. So I'm not going to get into too much detail, but this wisdom tooth back up here, when they pulled it out, they didn't realize that they had left a hole between my mouth and this sinus cavity that's on this side of my face. And so long story short, I went through my second semester of my sophomore year of college horrifically sick. Like, it was really bad. It required surgery to fix, so that's why I didn't end up going to officer candidate school juniors and seniors, because I had to go get sinus surgery that summer when I would have been at juniors, and I wouldn't have made it if I had not gotten the surgery and gotten everything fixed, because it was basically like this entire sinus was completely full of, like, not just like a sinus infection, like a serious like septic infection that affected my whole immune system. But anyway, so from my sophomore year, that March, I trained all the way until June when I got the surgery. This is June before my junior year of college. Then at that point, I had like a bit of a recovery period, and now we're going into my junior year of college, and I'm fully recovered from the surgery. And at this point also, the officer selection officer has changed to a different captain, and this was my year. Like, junior year, I was like, this is it. Like, I have a full year, I'm perfectly healthy. Like, I committed my entire junior year, outside of obviously maintaining my good grades and staying on the rowing team and everything, but every waking moment I was working out. I was doing things to prepare me for officer candidate school. I was studying the knowledge that I could get my hands on. I was going to the pool functions. I was doing everything in my power to get ready for officer candidate school. And then I shipped off to officer candidate school in June of 2019. Is that right? No. June of 2018. That would be 2018 because I graduated college in 2019. So June of 2018, I shipped off to officer candidate school. And this is where the real meat of the story happens. Okay, so I'm gonna just throw in this little story here because I did meet my husband in officer candidate school. And massive disclaimer, if you are a female or a male and you're going to officer candidate school, do not go there to meet a husband. That is not what I was planning at all. That is not the point of officer candidate school. The fact that this happened is crazy. I'm just gonna say the story. So, well, your first few days of officer candidate school, your first week or so, you're not getting screamed at, nothing horrible is happening to you. You're getting all the admin work done. You're getting, like, you're going through medical, you're doing your paperwork, you're getting your rack, you're getting all the gear and equipment and your uniforms and everything. And the second or third day, I'm sitting at medical, and I can't believe I'm sharing this story on the internet. Anyway, I'm just minding my business. You sit there for hours at this like weird little like overhang, under this overhang at like 80 degrees in Virginia in the summer, and you're just sitting there for hours reading through your like tiny like knowledge book or like the candidate regs. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, candidate regs. It's been a little while. And at this point, like, I'm bored out of my mind, and I'm just reading this tiny book, and it's been hours of us just slowly moving chairs to get in through medical, and no one's around, and there's no sergeant instructors yet at OCS at this point. And I'm reading my book, and I look over, I'm looking around, and I look over, and I see this guy who looks very familiar. I'm like, why can't I pinpoint this individual? He looks so familiar. He's like 2 people down from me. And I put it together, and I realized that he went to the same college that I did freshman year of college, and then he left school. And I never knew him personally. I never spoke with him. I think I only knew him because he had followed me on Instagram because, and I'm sorry, Mario, my husband, if I'm exposing you on the internet right now, but apparently he had a huge crush on me in college and just never had the courage to talk to me. And he would always see me in the weight room with the rowing team, and he found out who I was and he followed me on Instagram. So he goes through his freshman year of college, college was not really his path at the time. So he left after his first year of college, and then he enlisted in the Marine Corps. And he went through boot camp the same time I think my brother said. That would be the summer of 2016. Yeah, he went through the summer of the same time my brothers did, but two different. He was at MCRD Paris Island, they were at MCRD San Diego, but I digress. And I recognized him because I remember seeing on Instagram that he had gone through MCRD Paris Island. He graduated from boot camp, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting, because the school that I went to, Marist College, no one was interested in joining the military. There was like a handful of Army ROTC guys, but no one was interested in joining the military. It was a very, very like liberally minded school, and it just wasn't on a lot of people's minds to join the military. You know, maybe some people were cops, like wanted to be cops, but anyway. So I was like, wow, I should have gotten to know this guy, like, 'cause my brothers had just graduated from boot camp, like, wow, like a Marine Corps connection at Marist, that's so cool. And I realized that this man sitting 2 rows down from me, or 2 seats down from me, is Mario, and I was like, Mario? And he looks over, and he said he freaked out because, you know, in his mind, he was like, this is the girl that I had a huge crush on in college, have had no contact with. What the heck is she doing at officer candidate school with me? And so we were in the same company, and I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but we went through all of officer candidate school together, and we saw each other at like our worst and our best. And if you go through boot camp or officer candidate school with someone, you know all about them. Like, you know everything about them that there is to know, like what they look like when they're under pressure, what they look like when they're horrifically ugly. I was just gonna say it. You know, so at that point, I remember when I saw him at medical, I was like, this man is either going to be a wonderful lifelong part of my life, because this is too serendipitous that this is happening right now, or he's gonna come into my life and like mess my life up. And luckily we are married now, and we've been married for a year and a half, a little bit, a year and a half. When did we get married? Oh my god, a year and a half. Oh my god, I don't know why, I think 2020 has really just messed up my concept of time. But anyway, so that's sort of that story. I met my husband in officer candidate school. So officer candidate school was a very, very rough experience, to say the least. And like, you're probably thinking like, duh, Caitlin, like it's the hardest officer training that our country has to offer. Yes, but we found out very quickly, we being myself and the medical team in officer candidate school, because there is a medical team that is, their job, their focus is to make sure that if someone is significantly injured, like stress fractures, that they are removing them from the training environment. But if you twisted your ankle, they're doing everything in their power to keep you in one piece and send you back out there. So medical is not the devil. If you are about to go to officer candidate school and you are watching this, like, if medical is sending you home, it's not because they're mean, they're not fair, it's because you have broken or torn something that if you continue doing what you're doing on that broken part of your body, it will permanently damage your body for the rest of your life. So I unfortunately twisted my ankle so badly on like the first day that we met our sergeant instructors. So as I said, you go through the little bit of like the 1 week of in processing, and then there's the pickup, and that is, the pickup is referring to when you are officially, your platoon is officially taken over by the sergeant instructors that you're gonna have with you. My cat is scratching the door, 1 second. All right, I'm back, and I opened up that door because my cat was not interested in me for like the last 2 hours, and now he just like needs me for whatever reason. So I'm leaving that door open so he can come in and out of the bedroom where I'm filming. But anyway, so there's the pickup, which is when you meet your staff members that will be yelling at you and molding you into an officer in the Marine Corps. That is their job. They are tough on you for a reason. Anyway, so on the day of the pickup, it's very important that you're taking inventory of the gear that they give you, because I'm not talking gear like uniforms, I'm talking gear like Camelback and LBV and canteens and stuff like that, like, because that stuff is not given to you, it is just kind of loaned to you for the time that you're there. And so one of the first things you do on the pickup is you have a sea bag that's full of all of the stuff, the junk, I don't remember what it's called, sieve gear, maybe? I think that's what it's called. I should know that because my husband is a Marine and he has sieve gear. But anyway, you dump it out on the parade deck, which is like a massive slab of like boiling hot concrete, and they're screaming at you, and you have to like hold up different pieces of gear and stuff to make sure that you have it all there, because you can't start the training cycle if you're missing something, because all of that gear gets used. And I was running because they're yelling at you to get to your sea bag. I was running to my sea bag, and I was the dumbass that decided to jump over a sea bag next to me because people were pushing me, like other candidates were pushing and screaming and everything, and I was just trying to get out of everyone's way. So I jumped over a sea bag and I caught my toe and I landed on my right ankle at the worst angle possible. Like, a fellow candidate watched it happen, and she told me right away. She is a prior enlisted Marine, and she says, she's like, Green, I've seen, because at the time my last name was Green, I've seen a lot of Marines break their ankles, and I swear you broke your ankle. And I didn't. I did not break my ankle, but it was by far the worst sprained ankle that I've ever had in my entire life. The entire ankle swelled up so big that it could barely fit into the boot. It felt like my foot was just like dangling on by a thread. It was extremely painful. So imagine spending the first week of officer candidate school unable to basically use one of your feet. Like, because I mean, the first week of officer candidate school is like one of the worst, because that's when they're like not even trying to pretend that you're a human being. They're just like screaming and screaming and screaming. They're trying to make you feel fear and chaos and see if you can like deal with it. And it wasn't until like 3 days in on walking on that ankle that I was finally brave enough to go to medical, and they thought that I broke it too, but they took an x-ray and I did not break it. And that is not why I failed officer candidate school. It was not because of this ankle, but at that time at medical, that's when they noticed. They were like, they told me, medical was like, it's really crazy that you haven't broken your ankle, because this is one of the worst sprained ankles that we've seen in a little while. Like, you must have really, really flexible ligaments in all of your joints so that your ankle is able to like basically snap all the way around and not break. And I was just like, okay, interesting. Knowing in the back of my mind that I have sprained my ankle a lot as a child and as an adolescent, like on hikes or runs or whatever. I would just like sprain my ankle. It would just like whoop, either one of them, and then I would just keep running because it was such a common occurrence for me. And okay, this is where the video is going to get a little bit squeamish. So if you have issues with injuries, physical sports injuries, you might not want to continue. I'm just going to be honest. But I also have dislocated, at this point, I've dislocated my kneecaps pretty often, like once a year, once every 2 years, starting in 7th grade. And they had always just snapped right back in. I'm able to kick my knee back in, it just comes right back, and go on with my day. Like, I would sometimes need crutches for a few days. But when the medical team said like, you have really loose ligaments, I had this like little like, oh shit moment, because I was like, yeah, it's like one of those things where like a doctor can't diagnose it to you that you have loose ligaments until like, it's not something that you really think about, I guess. I don't know. So this spark went off in my brain and I was like, And basically throughout the entire training cycle, I made it through 9 weeks. Throughout the entire training cycle, I kept spraining my ankles, both of them, even though I had knee braces on, and I dislocated my kneecaps 4 times. And I'm so sorry if that really freaks you out, but the thing about dislocating your kneecap, you're not like dislocating the knee joint is not like the actual joint of the knee, because I'm pretty sure the joint, I'm not a medical professional, but I'm pretty sure your knee joint is, it's not a ball and socket, is it? I don't know. If you're really curious, I would look at like an anatomically correct diagram of the knee. I can't do that because it freaks me out. But basically the top of my knee, so if this is like my knee and this is the kneecap, it will slide inward and then just slide back out, and it makes like this horrible, I'm trying not to get like sick, but like it makes this horrible like click pop, and it feels awful. And I did that 4 different times, and the reason I was able to continue even after I had done it the first time, the second time, and the third time, and even the 4th time, is because the thing about the injury is it happens, it's excruciating pain, and then you can get up and walk away. And that's not to say that it doesn't do any damage to my body. As this was going on, my ankles, which were constantly getting twisted no matter what I did, and my kneecaps, which were coming in and out, I did each one 2 times. It was like I did one and then I did the other, and then I did one and then I did the other, like a few weeks apart. And they were just, my joints were getting extremely swollen, like from the waist down, basically. Were just swelling up. I was losing function and movement in them. That was normal because they were so swollen. But the thing is, I did not want to go home. I was like, absolutely, I'm not going home for this. Like, I'm still holding on. I held on for as long as I could. And it finally came down to what at the time was one of the culminating events, physical events required for graduation. And this has since changed. So at the time, you know, there's hikes, and again, I'm not going to get too in detail of like the curriculum and what OCS expects of you because that's not the point of this video, but there were a few culminating physical events that you had to get through in order to graduate. So in order to graduate from officer candidate school, you need to have certain grade point averages, or like they grade you on leadership, physical fitness, and knowledge, and you have a percent grade for each of those. And if you're below 80% in any of those, you have reasons to be dropped from the course. And I was already barely holding on with my physical grade because my body was barely holding on with doing anything physical. Running sucked, and I was a strong runner. I was a very strong runner at the time. Everything was horrible, and so the hikes were god awful. Oh my god, because you do them at night, and so you do it on like a gravelly dirt road, and so you can't see the holes, and so you step in them. That I dislocated my knee one of those times when I was hiking because I stepped in a hole. I twisted my ankle countless times on hikes to the point where I would just collapse to the ground, and people would think that I broke my ankle because my ankle's like swinging around. And yeah, anyway, so the event that was ultimately the cause of me not being able to graduate from officer candidate school the first time, it's week 9 out of 10, and there's something called the E course, aka the endurance course, and you start off with an O course, which is an obstacle course, and then you do all these obstacles, and then you put on your LBV, which is your load-bearing vest with 2 canteens, and you grab your rifle and you run 3 miles through the woods. And it's like obstacle courses and like hills, and there's like at the very end you go through like a little bit of the Quigley, which is like a swampy water hell, smells like horrible, and you have to complete that course by a certain time. And if you do not, at that time, if you did not finish the course for females in like, I don't know, 50 something minutes, I don't remember what it was exactly, you do not graduate. Like, no questions about it. Doesn't matter if your physical fitness score overall is like really high. It was a graduation requirement to be under the time for the E-course. And again, for context, at that time, injuries aside, I was a very strong runner. Like, I was like in the top, honestly, probably the top 10 people in the platoon at the time, which you might be thinking like, that doesn't sound that high. Yeah, in the real world, if you're in the top 10% or whatever of fast people, you know, you're probably pretty fast. But at officer candidate school, if you're one of the faster people compared to the general population, you're pretty damn fast. I'm gonna toot my own horn. I was a strong runner. I wasn't very strong at like upper body stuff, but running I was very strong in. So I failed the E-course, and on paper, that is absolutely the reason why I did not graduate from officer candidate school. I will not say, oh, it's because I was injured, because I was not sent home for my injuries. Because like I said, every time I had an injury, I would be able to walk away from it. Yeah, maybe I'd be like on light duty for a few days, but I was still able to go through with what was going on. I'd be like limping my ass through drill, but like I was able to continue. And it was the E-course that I did not graduate from, and so I had to go up against a board on the 9th week of officer candidate school, 1 week away from graduation, and look at the CEO of officer candidate school at the time, and he went through my file and was basically like, look, candidate, like, I mean, he's much more eloquent than this, he's a colonel in the Marine Corps, but I can see that you've been injured a lot, and I'm going to assume, and at this point, like, you're candidate, you're not talking to this man, he's just talking to you, you're just standing at the position of attention, he's just talking to me, and I'm just saying yes sir, no sir. He says, I can see that you've been injured a lot, you've been in and out of medical more times than most people that we let graduate, so I'm going to conclude that, you know, part of this issue of you not graduating the E-course is because you had 4 braces on, 2 knee braces and 2 ankle braces. Is that correct? Because he could see that I had been given those and told by the medical team to wear those, and it was true. I had 2 ankle braces. Did I say 4 each? 2 ankle braces, 2 knee braces. Obviously, I have 2 ankles, 2 knees. And he said, you know, I can't bend the rules for you. A graduation requirement is a graduation requirement, and candidate, we're sending you home. So on the 9th week of my first attempt at officer candidate school, I was sent home because I could not graduate the E-course. And he, the colonel, I don't even remember his name, I wouldn't name it if I knew it anyway, but he said, like, I can see that you're a strong runner because of your PFT scores, so I'm gonna just draw a conclusion here that this is not an issue of your running ability. And that was kind of weirdly nice for him to say, but it was true, because like, I'm not gonna say that to him, like, well sir, it's because I'm so injured, like that's not my place. So I was sent home, and I basically was on the road to recovery, and I was so upset because about a month after I'd been sent home, the E-course was no longer made a graduation requirement. Seriously, I failed it. I failed the E-course time by 12 seconds. I distinctly remember, because they show you a big clock at the finish line and you're running towards the clock, and I knew in my head like what time I was supposed to hit, and I just watched it go higher and higher and higher, and I went 12 seconds over, so I was 12 seconds slower than the required E-course time, and that's why I was sent home. And I was pissed. Like, I worked my ass off for the next year because I was like, there's no way. I was 12 seconds away from becoming an officer in the Marine Corps, and then I just was sent home. And then on top of that, so the CO had changed, and the new CO, commanding officer, had changed the E-course requirement to no longer be a requirement. You just had to finish it, and if your time was under, that just means that your grade would be a bit low, but if your physical fitness grade was high enough, it would overall come to, you would still be able to graduate. So I spent the next year just working out so hard, 2 times a week. And then I spent like the summer, because I went to officer candidate school the second time, the September after I graduated from college. So it's September of 2019. And at this point, I could run 7-minute miles for an hour. I was able to do 9 pull-ups. I was so prepared and so ready to go to officer candidate school because I had already done 9 weeks of it. The only thing I missed, I did every single graded event. The only thing I missed was the out processing. I missed like when you go and have lunch with current second lieutenants and talk to them. I missed like the briefings from like, or like the inspirational talks from like various people in the Marine Corps and stuff. Like, I did every single thing that I needed to do. I was just 12 seconds too slow on an event that was no longer a graduation requirement, which for me was a stab in the heart. And like, it was so hard not to take it personally because the Marine Corps doesn't care about you. And I mean, should I say that? Like, the Marine Corps does not care about a candidate. They don't. They're not gonna be like, oh, well, we feel so bad for candidate Green. Like, she was so close and she was obviously injured, so we'll let her in. Like, no. I don't hold a grudge against the Marine Corps for making that decision. I get it. A rule is a rule. You can't bend the rule. And it was just one of those things where I was in the wrong place at the wrong time and it didn't work out. So I go back to officer candidate school the second time. At this point, I had just been married to my husband. So my husband and I had been dating for about a year. We got married in August of 2019, and then I went back to officer candidate school in September of 2019. And I was at officer candidate school the second time in September of 2019 for 2 weeks, and I was sent home again. And this is, we're getting to the end here, and this is where I finally sort of was able to let go of this, you know, desire that I had to be an officer in the Marine Corps. And so, you know, there's nothing dramatic about the second time that I was dropped. Basically, I was going through the Quigley, which I briefly mentioned before is like a half underwater, half like 3 inches, your head's 3 inches above water obstacle course where you have like your full get up on, your full, I'm trying to remember the name, like your full uniform, your Kevlar, your LBV, your weapon, and you're like, it's basically to see if you can like remain calm in like an extremely uncomfortable situation, if you can follow orders and like do basic maneuver under fire and stuff. Well, there's no actual fire, it's just blanks, but still. And I was going through the Quigley, and this makes my stomach turn just thinking about it, and my foot got caught on a root or something, and my kneecap dislocated when I was underwater. And I like emerged from the water, and I'm screaming because it hurt so bad. And I remember my first sergeant, my company first sergeant, grabs me by the back of the LBV and like rips me out of the water. He was like this incredible man. I was like, I really looked up to him, so it was pretty embarrassing. And he's like dragging me along the side of the Quigley, and he's like, Kennedy, what's wrong? Well, actually, he knew my name because I had gone back to officer candidate school the second time. A lot of the staff members knew me and remembered me, and basically I was in this fortunate position where they decided like I wasn't a total shithead, and like they would have conversations with me. Like 2 weeks into officer candidate school, I was having, not eye to eye because that was considered disrespectful, but I was able to have face-to-face conversations that didn't require yelling with a lot of different staff members, and like some of them were, you know, more important. Like that feels weird to say, but like I was able to talk to my company first sergeant. He knew who I was. I was able to talk to like one of the sergeant majors of all of officer candidate school, because when I was there, he was a first sergeant for the company that I had been in. He was a company first sergeant for when I was with Alpha Company the first time. And so I was in this very strange position where I was killing it. I was like ranked #1 in my squad, which was huge for me because I struggled so hard the first time. I was able to like get a little bit of respect out of a lot of the staff members there, which is again huge, because that's like that's a very big deal, I guess, if you're a candidate, to feel respected, which is not something that they need to do to you. They're supposed to make you feel stressed and like you're terrible at everything. And I was killing it physically, I was killing it with the knowledge, and I was so ahead of the game. I had everything prepped and ready to go. I was literally getting 8 hours of sleep a night if I didn't have duty, which is unheard of in officer candidate school unless you're like a prior enlisted Marine or you've been through officer candidate school before. So I was killing it, and I'm getting ripped out of the water by my first sergeant, and he's like, "Great, is this your knee? I've heard about this thing before," like, because I guess people had been like, "Oh, that's the girl that kept dislocating her knees and dragged her way through last summer." And so he was like, "Was this your knee?" And I was just like, "Yes, First Sergeant." And he's like, "Go to medical." So I go to medical, and it was the weekend. We did it on a Saturday, so the main medical staff was gone. The staff that have like all of the equipment, and there's like a traveling medical staff that are made of like Navy corpsmen and like a few less experienced athletic trainers, and then there's like the heavy duty medical staff where you like go in and they will like give you a cast and like set your bones if you need to, and like give you like, they're like the big deal staff. So I couldn't go to this staff because they were not there. So I was talked to by a corpsman, and he didn't know me, he didn't know that I'd been there before, so he was just like, "Here's some ice and an ace bandage, and we'll see you Monday." So I you know, went through Saturday, went through Sunday. I get to the medical tent, not the medical tent, the medical building center on Monday, and as soon as I walk through the door, the head athletic trainer, I don't remember his name, but I would see his face. I would see the face any day. He looks right at me and he's like, "I know you really well, I think." And I talked to him, and he quickly realized, he was like, yes, he put it together immediately, because I'd been in there like once or twice a week, every single week that I was there last year, the year before, and he was like, "I don't think that this is a fluke anymore," because the last time I was there, they were just like, "Oh, well, it's because you twisted your ankle. So once you twist your ankle, then the knees go. Then, you know, it's just like a domino effect." And that's just what they kind of kept telling themselves, because they don't have the time or the money or the need to like really give candidates in-depth medical screening unless it's like obvious that something is broken. And you know, so at that point they were like, there's something going on here, because you're only 2 weeks in and you dislocated your knee on a tree root under the water. Like, you were horizontal, you weren't putting any weight on it, you were floating. And so I had a very in-depth, they took the time at this point, a very in-depth look with multiple athletic trainers. Like, I was laying on my back and they were like testing all my joints and my mobility. They were like moving around my shoulders and my socket. They were like, you know, doing like physical trainer, athletic trainer type things. And they were having me like do all these stretches and stand in my normal posture. And basically they came to the conclusion that all of the major joints in my body have something called ligamentous laxity, and I will double check to make sure that it's a real thing, but it's a very fancy way of saying, as they first discovered that first fateful time that I almost broke my ankle when I tripped on that sea bag over 1.5 years ago, that all of the joints in my body have extremely loose ligaments. And it's nothing disgusting, it's kind of gross, but like, I remember there's like this one girl I knew in high school who could like dislocate her shoulder and then put it back in and have no problems. I can't do that, but basically the reason why it kept coming down to my knees dislocating is, I'll put a picture here to sort of see if I can help explain it. This is a picture that I took right before I was going to OCS round 2, so I was like in the best shape of my life at this point. You can tell the way that my thighs line up with my calves and my knees, there's a disconnect. It's not a straight line. It's kind of almost like I'm bow-legged, and it's not enough that you can tell when I'm walking around in day-to-day life, but it's something that I've always known has been a part of my physiology ever since like high school, when I was training with a weight coach for all the different sports I was doing, and he was baffled as to why every single time I did squats, because I'm a very strong squatter, I genetically am built to have very big thighs and a pretty big butt for my size, despite this photo, because at this point I was running for like an hour a day, weightlifting for a second hour each day. It was crazy. But he was always baffled that every time I would squat, my legs are not capable of going just like I'm stuttering. My legs are not capable of doing the squat that's just, you keep everything aligned, it's just going up and down. My knees have to come out. Otherwise they buckle inward. There's something in the way that my joints are lined up from hips to knees to ankles that is not straight. And so because of that, my thighs kind of come in and my calves kind of come out. So if you take the fact that at officer candidate school you receive a lot of downward pressure on your body because you're carrying a lot of weight around, and my leg is kind of, I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. So this is, okay, let's do it this way. So this is my thigh, this is my calf, and this is a bit exaggerated, but if my leg is like already kind of angled in this way, I'm receiving a lot of downward pressure on this joint. And on top of that, the joint that's holding the thigh and the shin together is extremely flexible in the ligaments. Something's got to give. So it would just, and then my kneecap would come out. These two bones would come down, my kneecap comes out, and that's why that happens. So the end of this story, the moral of this story is that sometimes you go after something in your life, and to be fair, this wasn't a life dream of mine. This is just something that I wanted to pursue because, again, I didn't want to regret never ever pursuing it, but excuse me, but for reasons that were completely out of my control, I was sent home because they discovered that, you know, look, and the athletic trainer at that point, he and I were boys at that point because I was always in there with him. He was like, you know, candidate, like, this is something that's gonna happen to you for the rest of your life, whether you're in the Marine Corps or not. And to hear that was almost, in a weird way, like kind of cathartic, because it just meant like, oh, like I can rest now. I don't have to, because I had spent, I think at that point it was 3 years of my life, like with going to officer candidate school and becoming an officer in the Marine Corps is like the forefront of my mind and my goals and everything. And it was taken away from me from something out of my control. And, you know, I'm not going to get too into depth with it now, but it worked out for the best. It really did. I married a wonderful man that if I had never been to officer candidate school, I would have never met him. He would have just been someone that I went to college with that had a crush on me one time. And I realized that, yes, being an officer in the Marine Corps is incredible. Like, it is something to be very, very proud of. I watch my husband do it every day, and it's so amazing. It's really, I very much have a high reverence and respect for the Marine Corps because it kind of raised me. And I work for the Marine Corps now, side note. Here is a video, hopefully it's up here, of me talking about working for the Marine Corps. And I'm just, you know what, if you're in a place right now, whether you've just failed officer candidate school or you're going into officer candidate school and you're nervous that you might fail, or something else in your life that you really, really wanted failed for reasons out of your control, just know that there are other things out there for you. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's okay, everything's fine, because that's not true. Like, I was devastated. I would get nightmares about officer candidate school for a year after the second time I failed. Like, I still live on the base that officer candidate school is at, so I still see staff members of officer candidate school that look at me and they're like, she looks familiar. And, you know, sometimes that's a bit humiliating because I've seen a few people on base that have been like, Green? And like, now my last name's Catania, and it's like, nope. And, you know, my husband got to become an officer in the Marine Corps and is one, so like that used to sting a little bit in the beginning because he would be continuing on with the journey that I never really got started on, no matter how much time and effort I invested into it. So I don't really know how to draw this video to a conclusion because I have a feeling it's gonna be quite long. I've never actually told the full story to anyone out loud because anyone that the story would be relevant to, they lived it with me, whether it was my family or my friends, and so there was never a need to sit down and just say the whole thing. So hopefully this is not too long. If it is, I still feel that I should put this on my YouTube channel because, you know, it is a very important thing that happened to me in my life, and it's a building block, it's a jumping off point for, you know, it's the reason that I am married to the man that I'm married to. It is the reason that I live the lifestyle that I live as a Marine Corps wife. It is the reason that I have the job that I currently have, that you know, it's the reason, it's a big important part of my journey with fitness and health and weight. And so I just really felt the need to put this on my channel, and I was really nervous when this video started, but I'm glad that I did this. It means that I don't have to talk about it ever again. It is out there for the world to see, and if you are someone that was in my life while this was happening and you just knew that I had failed but you didn't really know why, here's why. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. Not much else to say. I hope that you got something from it, even if it was just entertainment on the level of like a story time on YouTube. I'm not sure. And you know what, if you are someone who's thinking about going to officer candidate school, or who have recently failed, or you just want to talk about it, it's still fresh enough in my mind that if you go ahead and comment down below or message me over on my Instagram, I'm very active at replying to DMs from followers over on my Instagram, and you have a question or you want to talk or anything like that, please go ahead and do so. And actually follow me on my Instagram if you have not already, because as you can tell, I'm very much not an officer in the Marine Corps. I'm very into fashion and lifestyle and beauty and travel, so that's what you can find over on my Instagram if that's something that you might be interested in. And that is how I am officially going to end this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. Excuse me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.